Hi, this is Kate McDonald. I am the founder of Build the Matriarchy, and I wanted to take some time to discuss the reach of patriarchy. I think a lot of us don't understand just how far reaching it is, how much of our society has it affected in the way that we function, the way that we organize ourselves, the way we communicate, the way we just see the world. So I want to give a visual of what that looks like. Starting at the center here is obviously patriarchy. Historians have been researching this for many years, trying to figure out where did this originate. And as far as we can tell from recorded history, the earliest findings of patriarchal ideas, of the most fundamental basic ideas of patriarchy, where men are superior to women, men control most of the functions of society, date back to thousands of years, like at least 3,000 years BCE. So we're talking 5,000, 6,000 years now of patriarchy. So it's no wonder that it's deeply embedded in so many things that we experience as humans today across the world. Yes, there have been some matriarchies that have popped up here and there throughout history, but this video isn't about that. This is about the reach and scope of patriarchy. So we have patriarchy here at the center, obviously. And the most notable, most obvious one that it influences is really starting with sexism, defined gender roles that are rigid, and in the worst case, misogyny or the hatred of women. So we see things like the husband lording things over the wife, or simply being seen as the head of the household, the head of the family, the primary decision maker, things like that. But also, in a more broad sense, the idea of masculinity being preferred over femininity, not just between men and women, but amongst men themselves. That if any men display attitudes or behaviors or style or anything that most men would see as somewhat feminine, they're looked down on. Then we have authoritarianism, which is most often seen as adults looking at children as their property, completely controlling and commanding their lives, determining their futures, determining what career path they should go down or how they should be educated, how they should behave in the world, how they should dress. Everything to do with children is completely controlled by parents, but specifically by fathers in patriarchy. And then governments having control over their citizens, how their citizens function in society, what rights they have, what rights they don't have, a very authoritarian perspective rooted in patriarchy. Then we have things like racism, colorism, and superiority complexes by certain groups, specifically white supremacy, where we see anything as valuable as white, anything bad as black. And sometimes we can see that in literally just how we perceive evil, good and evil, but also in our relationships to other humans. And then beyond that, we look at colorism, where we say the lighter skin you have, the better, versus darker skin, as if that's somehow bad. Then we have exploitative capitalism. This is where we value richness over poorness. We see being poor as a character flaw rather than a circumstance that someone is in, or that they have struggled through for generations because of not inheriting wealth from previous generations. And then we certainly see valuing profits over people, that we care more about how profitable is this company than how are people being overused or exploited, essentially. Are people being exploited so that we get better profits? If that's happening, that's exploitative capitalism, and that's definitely rooted in a patriarchal attitude. Then we have centralization of power and authority, that we don't want to share. We certainly don't want to collaborate. So even just in our organizational structures, you see the boss sitting at the top of that hierarchical structure, right? And all the employees are there to serve the purpose and the goals of the boss. The boss is the one who usually gets the biggest bonus for all the work the people did in the team, right? Then control over collaboration. We want to centralize control. We believe there's only some people that are qualified or smart enough to actually make good decisions. So rather than, sharing the wealth and sharing the responsibility of collaborative decision making, we centralize that all within the power structure. Then we have spiritual superiority. So this is where parishioners are looking up to their pastor or priest or spiritual leader as superior to them, that they know more, they understand God more. They need someone to help them navigate their spiritual experience because they're not smart enough to do so, and so they're giving over their personal responsibility of their spiritual growth to someone else. And also this idea that it's more important to be right and righteous than it is to be empathetic and care about others, that we want to make sure that we're always looking more righteous than the people around us. And then there's the cis hetero compulsion. Patriarchy is very family oriented, again, with the father being the most superior person in that family. And so there's this compulsion to be associated with your cisgender and also to have heterosexual relationships to propagate more families. And so that's why that compulsion is there. So there's definitely value of being straight over being queer, and certainly over of being cis over being trans, because how can you continue to propagate the earth and continue patriarchy and continue all these other things if you aren't making more babies, right? In the way that they see it as appropriate to make babies. And then last but certainly not least, we have classism, elitism, and imperialism. This is where we again see this idea that someone should be in command of a group of people rather than the group of people coming together and creating community. So we see all these local government structures. We see imperialism and capital and colonialism, that we should go conquer these groups because they are savage and we are civilized. So all of these concepts are really rooted in the heart of patriarchy. Well, a lot of people struggle with the word patriarchy because they get mad that, oh, this is making men look bad. Well, men at large are not bad. The male of the human species is not evil. But patriarchy is a male-driven concept for thousands of years now, where men are in charge of all these things and in charge of all these structures coming into play. But if you don't like the word patriarchy, you could swap it out for social hierarchies. The idea that we are creating values at different levels of society, that we say some things are better than other things. And therefore, if you aren't in that good category, that better category, you are less than. And so whether you want to attribute that to patriarchy or not is your decision. But patriarchy is all we've ever known. And literally all of these systems came out of patriarchy. Now, who knows? If matriarchy had been the prevailing concept, could these things have arisen anyway? We'll never know. All we know is that patriarchy is where we're at and what we've always had. And all of these existing systems have thrived under patriarchy. So what does matriarchy look like? We'll do that in another video, but I just wanted to start with this one. I hope this helps.